Hey, Scuba Squad. Thanks for tuning in. As always, we appreciate your support. So Sally and I are going to road trip down to Florida for an epic week of diving and driving. We're going to go all the way down to Key Largo, and we're going to do some wrecks down in the Florida Keys with Concrete Public Diving. Shout out to you. And so the Spiegel Grove, we can get down to 120, 130. So for that, we are going to have pony cylinders. So I ordered a stage kit or sling kit for this pony. This one's a 30 cubic foot pony. This one's a 40 cubic foot pony. As you can see, there's quite a difference in size. And when you're selecting a pony, you want to select a pony that's appropriate for the size of the diver. So if you have a big tall fellow like me, a 40 cubic foot pony is probably more appropriate. And for your smaller size divers such as Scuba Sally, probably a 30 is more appropriate. And so we have this whole stage kit, and I wanted to show you guys how to assemble a sling kit or a stage kit. So just need a few tools. You have some options. You need a 7mm socket, 7mm wrench, or a good old-fashioned flathead screwdriver. And that is for your hose clamp. So you just to cinch this up, you just turn it, and you can use this or you can use your socket, whatever you got on. We have the webbing, we have the hose retainer, and then we have our two stainless steel bolt snaps, and then we have our small size belt sliders. So the first thing you want to do, you want to put on your hose retainer, because everything else is going to fit over the top of that. So put your hose retainer on first. And they're pretty grippy when they're new. Then after a while, they have a chance to kind of stretch out and relax and become a little more supple. So we're going to go from the top down here. And the first thing we're going to do is start with the top part of the webbing and bolt snap. So you just want to feed this through here.
And it's doubled up, right?
Yeah, and this is doubled up and it's sewn on this end. So you just put this on first, put this on here, and then feed this through like this. And you can adjust this as needed right here. So then this fits right over the top of the cylinder neck right here. And you want this to sit, doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it to sit somewhere right about here, give or take. You don't want it way down here. You don't want it up here generally, unless that really works for you. But I like to have it sit right about where the cylinder curve here ends. It's about where I like to have it. So on this bottom bolt snap, I'm feed this through here and feed it through the back side. Let me think. Yeah, we gotta feed this through here like this. This is how we do it. Feed this through here. Feed it under here and make your loop like this. And can you see how that makes a tail right here?
And your tail is on the back side.
Yep. And then you want to loosen this back up, and this is kind of tricky. So if you can see this okay, feed this through back underneath. Okay? And this is it fits, but it's kind of a little bit of a pain I don't know if you guys can see that okay, but you want to feed this through basically twice. It's kind of hard to see. So you see how that's fed through here now? You got it coming around through.
Hold it still.
Under your bolt snap and then back through like this. And then you can pull this tight. And now your leash is complete. Okay, you have a completely assembled leash. Now you can adjust this based on what your needs are. If you're a taller diver, you have a longer torso, you may need to let some of this out to facilitate clipping this off to your hip D-ring or a bottom D-ring somewhere on your webbing, and then this one goes on the top D-ring. So last step is this hose clamp. So you want to make sure that this is pretty loosened up. Kind of slide it onto your cylinder, and this should fit underneath. Here, I got to go to the edge of the table, get this all under here. So now this will be pretty solid. So this hose clamp, some of these retainers have a little bit of webbing over the top here to protect your clamp assembly. This one does not. It's not a big deal. You just want to be careful that it's not going to catch, that this isn't going to catch on something. So you could position it down here or here just to make sure it's not going to catch on anything. And so you can just kind of screw that on here. There. So then you want to pull this pretty tight on here. Pull this down kind of tight as you finish cinching this off. And then, if you really want to get schwanky, you can use your ratchet. You don't need to reef this down super tight. It just needs to be good and snug. And so now this is on there pretty tight. There's some play in it, but not a lot. Okay, and this tail, depending on how long this tail is and what your needs are, when you have this slung, this can flop around quite a bit. As you can see, there's a lot of play in here. So what you may want to do, dive it a few times and see if you want to cinch it up. If you make it really tight, it's going to be a little more difficult to clip it on and off. If you need to unclip it during a dive, it's going to be a little more difficult to do that. But then again, it's not going to be flopping around on you during the dive. So take that as you will. And for equipping or attaching the regulator, first of all, I highly recommend a good DIN connection for this because it's a much lower profile. And we have a Dive Rite XT1 and XT2 regulator set. This is the XT1 first stage. This is an XT2 second stage. It's a little bit older, but I like it. It works. And then I usually just put just a small gauge on here. Some people use a button gauge, and that's fine too. I just prefer to have a small size gauge. Now, some people like to use zip ties or something and clamp this up here, and you can do that, but that's going to put some stress on this hose, and you may have to replace the hose sooner than you would expect or would want to. So I usually just let it dangle. Sometimes I'll I'll tuck it into the hose retainer, and it just sits there. It's helpful. You don't really need a big pressure gauge like this. I like to have them on there. A button gauge will do if that's what you got. And then I like to put a piece of bungee on here. So I'll put a bungee cord here. And when I'm ready to dive, God, this is really tight. I'll route the hose like this, nice and tight to the cylinder, and then I'll have this around the mouthpiece like this. It doesn't need to be super tight. It just needs to hold it in place more or less during your dive. Okay, so you can kind of see how the hose is clean and tight to the cylinder on this side. And then over here, you have your handle. And when this is slung, your cylinder valve should be facing out. At least that's how I like to do it. It's kind of like a bicycle handle. So I like to dive with the line charged and the valve off to prevent accidental gas loss during the dive. And you want to have a 30 cubic foot pony, in my opinion, minimum. Make sure that you have enough breathing gas in your pony, whatever you're using, to adequately bail out from your dive. So if you're at 130 feet, 120 feet, 100 feet, and you need to bail out with this, make sure you have an adequate gas supply to get you to the surface. So to deploy this, you can just grab this out of here. Shouldn't be too difficult. And then just peel this hose out of here. And as you're doing that, you turn on your pony. You'll have about a breath or two maybe in the line. So you have to remember, at least for my part, open up this valve when you're deploying your pony. Practice with it a few times before you actually need it. And then you have a nice little pony. What's great about these regulators is they have a swivel turret on the bottom. So your hose routing will always be optimal, and this works great for a stage or a pony, or for technical diving where hose routing becomes more of an issue. So I really like this swivel on here. It works great. So anyhow, that's how I like to equip and use my pony cylinders. I hope that helps. Again, thank you for tuning in. We always appreciate your support. Have a good day, everyone.